Hello, everybody, and welcome back to my channel. My name is AJ Edwards, and this is Mr. E's Classroom. So today, ladies and gentlemen, I wanted to take some time to talk about one of the bigger challenges that we have as teachers, and that is how do we engage our kids in authentic conversations? How do we get them talking? How do we get them, so that their voice is the dominant voice heard within the classroom, as opposed to the teacher's voice being the dominant voice heard within the classroom. So today, I'm going to share with you 7 strategies that I've learned for initiating authentic discussion within your classroom. Then I'm also going to talk about one of the strategies that I like to do fairly regularly that is really awesome for an online setting, if you're still teaching online, for a hybrid setting, if you're teaching in a hybrid environment, or something that you can easily transfer into your face-to-face classroom for working with your kids and getting them to talk. Because I think the important part is that we facilitate a classroom in which our student voices are the dominant voices to be heard. Now, that's not something that can always be done. Let's be honest. There are times where we do need to have a good amount of time of instruction as the teachers, but for the majority of our classes, we really want to try to get our kids speaking. We really want to get our kids to engage with the content and more importantly, engage with each other. You want there to be a big social component within your classroom. So this is some strategies that I have that really works out well for me. So let's take a look. Like any good teacher, I made this into a PowerPoint. But so this is how to engage our students with some authentic discussions to help to encourage learning. Okay, so the first thing that I've discovered that's really huge for creating authentic discussion is to have some sort of a controversy created within your classroom. Now, I'm not saying to do this on the very first day of school, because let's be honest, you don't, you want to create an environment where the students feel comfortable navigating through controversy together. So if you're science, maybe you want to talk about, solar energy versus coal energy, find something that's somewhat polarizing that kids can really, really support and really get behind. Just recently, my kids were doing 1984, and we did a lot of discussions about government and the role of the police and the role of the citizen within a potential tyrannical society. And, the kids are really, really, really into arguing about their ideas about like the government's roles and like the way it protects the people. So this is one of the last units we're doing this year, so it wasn't something that we did right away. But adding some controversy doesn't have to be huge, polarizing, 1 versus 2 kind of controversy, but get something that really sparks them to want to go against each other, that really gets them to want to let their voices be heard. Another big part too is use small groups. I know for me, when I was a new teacher, one of the biggest things that I was afraid of was silence. I was really big on like, oh my gosh, they're not talking, I have to say something, they're not answering right away. And having just something as simple like a turn and talk really changed the way I approached my instruction in class. And if you want to get kids to talk, let them collaborate with each other. Have them be, if they're in rows, have them do a turn and talk. Have them built into different pods. Have them go to 4 corners of the room, right? So have like an idea on the whiteboard and have them walk to a corner of the room and then collaborate with each other, and then have them argue with the other groups their perspective and their points. The great part is that you can change your classroom to fit the situation and fit the scenario. Don't be afraid to move your desks. You can ask the kids to put it back at the end, but let them collaborate with each other. It's really good too for your quieter students, because it gives them the opportunity to still engage with their peers when they're talking in their small groups. They might be more comfortable talking in small groups. So you really want to do something that's going to be applicable and approachable to all the different kinds of students that you have. The other one is don't pose yes or no questions. Be very deliberate with the questions that you ask. Go into class with 4 or 5 questions written down that'll really get the kids talking. Not something as if like, oh, is solar energy good? No. You might say, so what is a potential setback that solar energy can have when being presented on a citywide versus statewide versus nationwide scale? Something that's not easily answerable, something that's not easily solvable. And also, kids have technology. We have these things in our hands that have so much different access and technology. So let the kids use their phones. Let the kids use, if they have Chromebooks, let them do a little research. Give them 10 minutes to do some research and to compile an argument. This doesn't have to be, this doesn't have to be an all class thing, but it doesn't have to be a 5-minute warm up either. So have some fun with it. Probably the most important one is it has to be important to the kids. It has to be important to the kids. So I suggest, getting to know your kids, survey your students at the beginning of the year, always ask them questions, try to figure out who they are as people, what they're interested in, because you want to make it relevant. You want to make it relevant. As an English teacher, I have to explain to my kids, yeah, you're probably not going to ever analyze a poem once you finish high school, unless you go on to get an English degree like yours truly. You'll probably never analyze a poem. However, complex language is in virtually every contract you're going to sign, right? So being able to truly understand what's being said on a mortgage or what's being advertised to you, critical thinking, it's something that the kids are always going to have to do. It's the same thing with creative discussion. If they don't care about it, they're not going to care about it. If it doesn't affect them, they're not going to care about it. Human beings, we're naturally kind of selfish and kind of greedy. We care about us, and we have to understand that going into creating conversations in our classroom. So make it relevant to the students, and also make it relevant to what they're talking about in the class. I'm doing a 1984 unit right now, and I'm not going to be asking my kids about something that's not relevant to the text. So I'm not going to bring in any of the debates that I have for like To Kill a Mockingbird to pair in with 1984. So do the same thing. Make sure that when you're planning your discussions, when you're planning your debates, really have those learning targets in mind and really understand how they affect the unit outcomes. Because if the kids are thinking like, why are we talking about this? There's probably going to be a problem. Also, let them know at the beginning kind of the whole purpose behind it. So for my students, when we were talking about the role of government, I told them, hey guys, government has a huge role in 1984. The control and the overpowering of government has a huge role in 1984. So that's why we're doing this. Like, there's a purpose behind it. So make sure that they know that there's a purpose, they know what the purpose is, and they can connect it. It might seem silly, but you sometimes have to really explain to your students like why this is important, because if they know why it's important from the beginning, they'll be more invested into it. Again, I can't express this more. Make sure it's something that requires the kids to think critical. You really want to get them thinking beyond just a yes or no. And then finally, time is huge. Again, when I was a first-year teacher, a second-year teacher, even a third-year teacher, silence frightened me. It was one of those things where it was very uncomfortable. I'd ask a question and it's like, okay, well, and I would end up answering the question myself because I was so afraid of the silence. And then, if administration walked in or somebody was in there observing me, it's one of those moments where you're kind of like, okay, how do I make it seem like I still know what I'm doing? And so give them adequate time to respond. Use those turn and talks. Let them use their devices to look up information. I know me, I usually have the students put their phones in a place for the class. So, safe space away from the students to help with focus and all that. But if you're doing a debate and they want to use their devices, say, okay, guys, have your devices for this time. As the do now, I can say, hey, keep your phones. It's not a trick. Ask some of my former students. I've gotten some quizzical looks when I was like, okay, guys, you need your phones today. But give them time. Give them time. Let them explore it together. Let them let them talk about stuff that's relevant and important to them, that connects to their lives. Make sure it connects not only to their lives, but to the text that you're doing. Use a little controversy, and don't give them easy answers. Don't give them yes or no answers either. Like, one of the biggest parts is you want to make sure that the kids aren't being told what to think. Our jobs as teachers is not to indoctrinate students into a certain mindset. Our job as teachers is to help students think critically so that they can explore all perspectives of an argument so that they can better understand the why, the what's, the hows, and make an informed decision. You might not agree with their informed decision, but as long as it's an informed decision, that's the important part. We don't want to force our kids to think that there is a yes or a no to everything, because everything is so complex. So friends, when you're looking at how to engage the students, some of the things that I would like to try, or that I recommend you try, are these things. So do an opinionaire or survey. All contents can use this. Ask them their opinion, ask them their ideas, survey the class, use that. Big one too for you non-English, case studies and scenarios, science, math, history, health, looking at, using COVID-19, for example, like talk about the effects of COVID-19 in different areas based on the national wealth, right? So look at third world versus first world countries and have them present like, what's the solution to this? Why is it happening? Give them also role-playing situations, for social studies, have them play these specific roles, when you're looking at the start of the revolution, be the British loyalists and be the nationalists and be the ones that are saying we should fight the redcoats, and those are saying we shouldn't. Like, let them choose sides and let them have fun with it. Same thing with foreign language too. Like, have them discuss certain elements of like French history en français, or have fun with it. Role playing is a lot of fun. Creating simulations is fun. And then finally, my favorite one is debates. I love debates, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today and give you a really quick rundown of how I do debates in my class. So debates are amazing because you really get a lot of fire from your kids, especially if it's something that is, enables all 7 of these strategies. And so one of the things that I find is, like, even the quietest classes, you can get a lot of good content from doing a debate. So one of the biggest things that I have with my rules, my expectations. So now I'm going to talk to you guys about doing it from a virtual setting, because I think virtually this is one of the hardest things that we have. Getting kids to engage, especially getting on the microphones. So here's how I do it. So I call mine the Thunderdome. I'm a huge fan of saying, let's open the Thunderdome, baby. So these are some of my rules and expectations. No personal attacks is a huge part. They can disagree with each other, but and I make this a hard negative. You will not attack somebody personally or talk down to them. Everyone participates. Raise your hand. The monitors will get you in. But I let them know from the beginning. My expectations is everyone participates, everyone engages. But most importantly, have fun. This is a good chance for you guys to all argue rather than listen to the teacher talk or listen to a ramble of a 31-year-old English teacher, right? The big thing too that I do is chat will be disabled. I let them know from the beginning that the participation is going to come from the mic. Now, as a realist, that might not always happen. As a realist, not every student is going to want to engage. Not every student feels comfortable, and that's okay. What I end up doing at the end or in the middle of the debate, or if there's a specific like spicy topic that's being talked about, I'll private message my students and say, hey, what are your thoughts? What are you feeling? And if they really have some really good thoughts, I'll open up the chat and I say, hey, let's see what some of our other students want to say. And I do let them have their voices be heard through the chat. Now, my school uses something, we don't use Zoom. So I'm not sure about Zoom if you can stop the chat, but for us, you can disable and enable the chat. So that's a big part that I can do, is kind of controlling, what's being written versus what's being said. But the biggest thing too is the language that I use. Like, I do let them know, like, you've had ample time to get a headset or use the built-in mic. I'm using a headset today, which I don't normally do for my videos. But the big thing is I say everyone can participate today. You want to try to enable your kids and you don't want to push them into uncomfortable situations. So the language is important. I tell them that they can participate. I don't say that they're going to, you will 100%, there's no ultimatum, right? So I do say everyone participates, but I'm never going to say everyone will participate. I say everyone can participate, and that creates, I think, a little bit more comfort for them. So this is the way I set it up. So if you have an agree or a disagree, you have your hot seats. So the hot seats are the people that are going to be talking. And the cool thing with the program my school uses is that you can see the names, like the kids can actually move their names. So I'll have them all like go to the very, very top, and I'll read the scenario. Or for 1984, they've done an anticipation guide as they're due now. And I use that as a Google form, and I take the information from that and I pick like the top 5 most controversial or like most evenly divided statements. And then so I'll read each statement, then the kids will move themselves from like the agree to the disagree. So they'll pick their sides. And then let me see if I can annotate this thing really fast. So yeah, so the kids, they'll put themselves here. So I'll have, AJ. So I go to the agree side, and then if I, agree or disagree, well, so then I can move myself into the hot seat when I'm ready to speak. And then, if I want to be up next, let's see somebody else is in there. But the cool thing is the kids can move their names all around. So, you know, the ends justify the means. Oh yeah, I absolutely agree. And then I'll, ask for a volunteer to go to the hot seat. So again, the hot seat is the only person that's speaking. The on deck circle, those are the people that are ready to go next. So the agree person goes. Once he finishes, their name is removed. The on deck person goes up. The next person on the opposition side goes again. And you can always change. It doesn't always have to be like agree. It doesn't have to always be disagree. You can say like yes, no. Um, uh, if you're doing like Bolsheviks versus Mensheviks, maybe you'll read a proposed idea and you have Bolsheviks on the left, Mensheviks on the right, and you'll have them, if they believe it's a Bolshevik idea, then they can move themselves to the Bolshevik side. If they think it's a Menshevik idea, they'll move it to the Menshevik side. It's a good way of getting kids to also think in the perspective of the content you're covering. My favorite part though about this, and I encourage kids to do this throughout, is you can see the effectiveness of your argument based on where people's names are. So let's say I'm going against, one of my students, and let's say, I don't know, Lauren is just really, really, really having a great argument about, something, and I have a first degree, but then I'm listening to Lauren. I'm like, you know what? I'm gonna cross the other side. The kids that are speaking, they get that instantaneous feedback because they see people's minds change. And it's really cool to watch the sides dwindle. Now, if you're doing this virtually, you can always have this up on the whiteboard. You'll have your camera facing the classroom so everyone can hear it. But the kids can basically play along. So you'll have your physical class have the agree side, the disagree side, the hot seats, the on deck circle, right? And if you notice the student in the virtual setting is on deck, you as the moderator, as a teacher, you can say, okay, well, next we're gonna go to one of our hybrid students. So AJ, go ahead and get on the mic and tell us what you think. And then, have your computer plugged into a speaker so that the whole class can hear what the people on the hybrid setting say. And then they can present their arguments. And then, so you can really engage them because you have this visual representation of what's happening within the classroom. So there's that physical space and the virtual space mirror each other. And then if you're in a physical classroom, it's very simple. Just split your class, divide the class in half, have two desks in the middle for your hot seats. You don't really need an on deck circle. You can maybe see kids raising their hand, or like, they'll wave to you and you say, okay. But yeah, so have the class divided in half and then have the kids cross the picket line. I used to love seeing my kids do that, and it really gets a lot of engagement with the kids, and they have a lot of fun with it. All right, so the last thing I want to talk to you guys about is there is a really fantastic book. So I'm going to give a shout out to Dr. McCann, Dr. Johannesson, Dr. Kahn, and Mr. Flanagan. So I went to Northern Illinois University for my undergrad, and Dr. McCann was one of my professors. I had the privilege of having him in class. I never had Dr. Kahn, and unfortunately, Dr. Johannesson passed away before I could be there. But Dr. McCann was amazing at getting us to discuss in class. And this is his book. It's called Talking in Class. I highly recommend it. It's not just for English teachers. It's great for history, for science. I highly recommend it for anybody that really wants to get their kids talking, that really wants to enhance their teaching and their student learning and really engage their kiddos. All right, everyone. Well, hey, thank you so much for coming by. Please make sure if you like this video, please give it a like. Please subscribe if you're new. Leave me a comment. What else would you like to get some ideas on as teachers? As parents, what do you want your kids to be engaging in? And as students, what do you want to be doing in your classroom? Let me know in the comments below. I'll be happy to add some more future videos to help us all become better teachers and learners. All right, everyone. Hey, thank you again for stopping by Mr. E's Classroom. I hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, please make it a great day.